invite you to rise in body or in spirit, page 127. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shmei Rabban B'alma divrach yirutei Yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon U'v'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael Agala ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה נברך לעולם ולמעלה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשו בריחו לעילה ולעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירה ועמה ויאמרו Amen. 131. Barechu et Adonai HaMavorach. Baruch Adonai Elam. Baruch Adonai HaMavorach Le'olam Va'ed. We take our seats. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorech choshech, oseh shalom, uvorei et hakol. Or olam botzar chayim, orot me'ofel amar vayahim. On page 4 in your handout, we wake ourselves up, giving us a new chance on this new day. Invite everyone to read together. Every day, creation is renewed. Wake up and see unfolding in the spreading light of dawn, the world and all it contains, coming into being, new, fresh, filled with divine goodness and love. Every day, creation is renewed. Reflected in the great lights, we see a new day, one precious day, eternity. Back in our Machzorim on page 143, let's sing together. Or chadash al Zion ta'ir v'nizkachu lanu v'meralenu. Or chadash al Zion ta'ir v'nizkachu lanu v'meralenu. Or chadash al Zion ta'ir v'nizkachu lanu v'meralenu. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer ha'meorot. 148. We gather ourselves together, feeling embraced and extending our embrace to all beings in that oneness that we'll proclaim as the Shema in the special Yom Kippur melody, and also proclaiming Baruch Shem Kavod, the second line that on this day we recall in ancient times when our ancestors all gathered in one place at the Holy Temple And there was one person, the high priest, whose task it was to carry the sins of the entire people and to offer them and ask divine forgiveness. And when the high priest went into that sacred space, that frightening space, all alone, people waited. They didn't know what was happening. And when the high priest would call out the divine name, the pronunciation of those 4 letters that we no longer know how to pronounce, Yud He Vav He, all the people would respond with gratitude and a sense of relief for the high priest and for them by proclaiming Baruch Shem Kavod. That is our practice on Yom Kippur, to remember that in some ways so much is riding on this one day. And we need to be continually reminded that we will receive compassion, that Din, judgment, will turn to Rachamim, mercy, and that this day will end up not being a day of fear, but in fact, a day of rejoicing. Let's join together singing 148, every page until we get through to the Shema, and also reminding those of you who do not yet read Hebrew that your supplement contains transliterations if they're not available in the book. So please refer to that as another form of help. We're asking for help from many quarters. Rabavtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chemla gedola v'teira chamata leinu Avinu malkeinu bavor avotenu v'imotenu shebachu v'cha Avinu malkeinu v'tlamdem chukei chaim Kein techonenu tlamdenu Avinu ha'arachaman Hamarachem rachem aleinu V'tein b'libenu lahavin ulhaskil lishmoa Li'amod u'lelamed Lishmor ve'lasot ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה והאר עינינו בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך Glory, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא פתחנו נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו כי אל פועל ישועות אתה כי אל פועל ישועות אתה וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלה 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 באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'olam Va'ed. Continuing on 150. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. 151 through 153 as you choose. I'm continuing on 159. Of course, this is a day for contemplation, and for those who prefer to daven, and I'm skipping pieces that are important to you, this is what today is all about. Whatever brings your attention and your focus to connection, it can be to what's going on here in the room, it can be to whatever reflections you need. You'll find reflections in our supplement or in the Machzor, wherever your mind is connecting as opposed to disconnecting, then I encourage that. So we are going to connect through the Amidah, opened by Michamocha on 159. And in addition to the readings about letting go and accepting change that are provided by members of our congregation in the handout, I want to share this thought. For those who are stuck on the idea of God deciding who's going to live and who's going to die, I want to remind us of a different way of thinking about that from Rabbi Jeremy Schwartz. Those who believe that God will punish wrongdoing with directed thunderbolts understand divine forgiveness as a reprieve from thunderbolts. What do we who may not believe in divine thunderbolts mean by divine forgiveness? Divine forgiveness is manifest in our coming to understand that wrongdoing is not part of our essence. We are forgiven when we once again understand that our source is in the divine and that we can act accordingly. That is why the process that leads to forgiveness is called teshuvah, which means returning. We return to our own godly essence. On 159. Moshe uMiriam uVnei Yisrael lechanu shira b'simcha raba v'yameru kulam מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא, שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדקנו ממך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. 468. Adonai שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Open my lips, beloved one, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, וחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, וכלכל חיים וחסד, וחיי מתים ורחמים רבים, סומך נופלים רופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות ומי תהום מלך, מלך מביט ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. 473. La 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 נעריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות לא כל הארץ כבודו איי 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 כבודו מלא עולם משרתיו שואלים זה לזה איי מקום כבודו לאומתם ברוך יאמרו יא לילה 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 יא לילה לילה יא לילה לילה ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו אלי ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים ויחונם עם יחד עם שמו ערב בבוקר בכל יום תמיד המים ביחווה שמה אומרים לה 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 שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו הוא ישמיענו רחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי לה 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 להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד עוד לך ונצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה. This is your time, 475 to 491. Some of us are concluding our private prayers. Invite everyone else to turn to 500. Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu, slach lanu, m'chalanu, kaper lanu. Yai rai 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 rai, yai rai 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 rai, yai rai rai rai, yai rai rai rai, yai rai rai rai, yai rai Ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu anu banecha ve'ata avinu Delta Delta Adonenu Anu Delta Chelkeinu Yaira 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 Anu Nachalatecha Ve'ta Boraleinu Anu Sonecha Ve'ta Romeinu Anu Chanecha Ve'ta Notreinu Anu Latecha Me'ata Yotzreinu Yai rai 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 Yai rai 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 Yai rai 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 Anu Ra'ayatecha Ve'ata Dodeinu Anu Segulatecha ve'ata kroveinu Anu Anecha ve'ata malkeinu Anu Ma'amirecha ve'ata Mamireinu Rai 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 We're preparing for the Vidui on 502, and I'm going to invite Rich Moshe and Marcy Siegelman to come take a place on the bima. As we rise, page 502. Ashanu, Bagadnu, Gazanu, דיברנו דופי, אבינו והרשנו, זדנו, חמסנו, טפלנו שקר, יעצנו רע, כיזבנו, לצנו, מרדנו, ניעצנו, שרנו, אבינו, פשענו, שררנו, קישינו עורף, רשענו, שחטנו, תיעבנו, טעינו, תיטענו. Remain standing and turn to 504. We sing the refrain. Kula Elo Salichot Slach Lanu Chalanu Kapelanu Kula Elo Slichot Slach Lanu Machalanu Slach Lanu Machalanu Kapelanu. As we wait to receive the forgiveness, I invite you to take your seats and we'll turn to our handouts for another plea, Adon Haslichot, and I'll invite Rich Moshe to lead us. Page 5 in your supplement.
This is a piyut from my youth, and the melody is the melody of the Jews of Baghdad. And we've sung this many years in the congregation, but for anyone who's new, I just call your attention to the basic message of this prayer is appealing to God's mercy and basically saying we've gone astray and be compassionate. And it's an acrostic, so we're appealing to the merciful attributes of God, literally from A to Z. The melody is pretty simple for the chorus. Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu. Try that. Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu. Adon haslichot bochen levavot gole amukot dover tzedakot. Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu. Hadur b'niflaot Vatik b'nechamot, zocher brit avot, choker kilayot, chatanu lefanecha, rachem aleinu. Excuse me. Tov umitiv labriot, yodea kol nistarot, kovesh avonot, lo v'tzedakot, chatanu lefanecha, rachem aleinu. Male zakiot, Nora tehilot, soleach avonot, orne be'etzarot, chatanu lefanecha, rachem aleinu, po'el yeshuot, tzofe atidot, kore hadorot, rochel aravot, shomea tefilot, tomim deot, Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu. Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu.
Thank you, Rich. I invite everyone to stand for Avinu Malkeinu. The ark is open, page 507. Avinu, as I said on Rosh Hashanah, is the representative of chesed, of compassion, of a loving parent. And Malkeinu is the representative of Gevura, of strength and discipline. Perhaps you may need one or the other. You may want to focus on which of those qualities you are most seeking on this Yom Kippur, Chesed or Gevura. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech elata. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh imanu leman shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu, chadesh aleinu shana tova. Avinu Malkeinu, hafer tzatoivenu. Avinu Malkeinu, stom fiut nasinenu makatrigenu. Avinu Malkeinu, kalei dever v'chera v'ra'av u'shavi u'mashkit mivnei britecha. Avinu Malkeinu, slach u'machal l'chol avonotenu. Avinu Malkeinu, achzirenu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, shlach refuah shlema l'chol ha'amecha. Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu v'sifratein tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu v'sefer gula v'yeshua. Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu v'sefer Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu v'sefer zechiyot. Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu v'sefer zechiyot. Avinu Malkeinu, atzmach lanu v'yeshua. Avinu Malkeinu, keren yisrael. Avinu Malkeinu, alei yadenu v'yachata. Avinu Malkeinu, tadal barachamim uv'ratzon et tfilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, nal shivenu rekam milfanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, zachor ki afar anachnu. Avinu Malkeinu, chamol aleinu ve'al kol aleinu ve'al tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh laman harugim al shem kodshecha. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh laman shimcha hagadol v'hagibor v'hanora shenikra aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Asayinu tzedakah asayinu tzedakah v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Asayinu tzedakah v'chesed. Asayinu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Marcy. Take your seats. We close the shacharit. Page 510. And reminding people to look in the back of your supplement for the transliterations that are not in the book. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'alma divrah hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'b'yom bechon u'b'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'b'zman kari v'imeru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevorach la'olam u'olmei olmaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekodeshah leila ol eila mikol birchat Shirata, Tushbechata v'nechamata, Tamiran be'ama v'imeru amen, Tikabel tzlachon uvalkon, L'chol Beit Yisrael kodam avochon, Divi Shemaya v'imeru amen. יש למרבה מן שמיה, וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו, 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 אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל. V'immeru, amen. It is so wonderful to have so many people, faces to look at. I can't see the faces on Zoom, but you can see each other and see us here in the room, and we are connected. We are not virtual. We are essentially in the same prayer space, even if not in the same physical space. Our Torah service will begin on page 517. There will be a number of people on the bima. I'll remind those coming up to the bima that I'm unmasked because I tested negative yesterday, as Susanna did, so that we were able to sing. And when you come up and you have a part in front of the, on the bima, you are free to unmask for that part. It's up to you how comfortable you feel doing that. So at this point, we will invite our co-presidents, Jocelyn Gordon, Raquel Rosenblatt, and our gabbai for the morning is Ruth Letterman. Rob Kalish is coming up to open the ark. Susan Kalish is carrying a scroll, and Ed Levy is carrying a scroll. I think they're both about the same weight, so just so you know. And our Torah readers will be Rich Moshe and Sarah Schneider and Jonathan Magaziner, who can come up at whatever point you feel comfortable. And I will be calling each person who has an aliyah as well. So Stephanie and Ian, why don't you make your way up to the bima now and take a seat as well. 317. I'm sorry, 517. אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם Adonai Oz, Le'amo Yiten, Adonai Yevarech, Et Amo V'Shalom, Avarachali, Heitiva Mirtzoncha, Et Zion, Tivna Cholo, Yerushalayim, Tivna Chomot, Yerushalayim, Ki Becha Levad Batavnu, Melech Ram V'Nisa, Adon Olam. Vayhi b'nso Aaron, vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, v'yafutzu oivecha, v'yanusu nesanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Udvar Adonai miYerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'Kedusha Adonai, Adonai, El Rachmanu, Haraim, Rav Chesed, Notzer Chesed La'avim, Noseh B'Fesha V'Chata V'Nageh, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Chaim, Rav Chesed Emet, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon B'Pesha V'Chata V'Nageh, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Chaim, Rav Chesed Emet, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon B'Pesha V'Chata V'Nageh. Ani tefilati l'cha Adonai et ratzon Elohim b'roch chesdecha aneni be'emet yishecha. 520, please repeat after me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Benora Shemo. Gadlu Ladonai Unerod Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai Agadu Atiferet Behanetza Behavot Kiko Vashemayim Uvaretz Kiko Vashemayim Uvaretz Lecha Adonai Amalacha V'amid Na'aseh L'chol Rosh Romanu Romanu Adonai Eloheinu V'hishtachavu L'adam raglav Kadoshu Romanu Romanu Adonai Eloheinu V'hishtachavu l'kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Rammemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Rammemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Rammemu ki kadosh Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu V'hishtakavu Lahar Kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu V'hishtakavu Lahar Kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtakavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtakavu lahar kodsho. La 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 la. You can take your seats. I'm going to ask Susanna and Anna to come up. And our Torah reading, which is not in our Machzor, this is something we've instituted for a couple of years. You'll find it on page 6 in your handout. And I'm very pleased that Rich Moshe has offered to introduce the Torah reading with a Devar Torah.
Morning, Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
So the question is, why do we read this portion on Yom Kippur? So first, you should consider yourself lucky, because the traditional Yom Kippur reading contained in the Machzor is the detail of the atonement service conducted by the high priest. So if you want to know exactly how many times the blood of the goat was sprinkled and exactly what was done before sending it off to the wilderness, that is the portion for you. It is dry. It's a loaf of unbuttered toast. I'm sorry, did I just use a gratuitous food metaphor in the middle of a fast? So I recall we used to read that at HPT. The alternate portion we read from Nitzavim focuses not on the ancient ritual, but instead on the work of Teshuvah that we do today. And what does that portion have to say to us? I want to focus on 2 words. The first is at the very beginning of the portion, and the second is in the middle. The portion begins, you are all standing here today, all of you, before your God. Atem nitzavim hayom kolchem l'fnei Adonai. That third word, hayom, today, is a funny word. A reminder, the portion from which this is taken is a speech that Moses made at the end of his life. All of Israel is gathered, and Moses wants to talk about Teshuvah and what the process entails. So he says, we are gathered here today, but we gather here in our today, almost 3,000 years later. It's kind of amazing to be reading a transcript of a speech given so long ago that still speaks to us today. Today, now, that word evokes time. So what is Teshuvah time? Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, a man so identified with teaching that he was known simply as the Rav, meditates beautifully on the issue of Teshuvah and time. In considering Teshuvah time, the Rav describes this present moment and its call to turn and return as a special kind of spiritual time where the past, the present, and the future fuse and flow into each other. The past, what are the lessons we have learned from a spouse, a parent, a friend, or just experience that we need to apply this coming year? That past becomes present with us as we do Teshuvah. We need to be in proper relationship to that past. We need to distill its lessons, not wallow in its pain. In fact, there is a rabbinic drash that speaks of Teshuvah as converting our sins into righteous deeds. That's not some magic erasure. but it is an alchemy. It means developing the right attitude towards our mistakes and using them as fuel. From the vantage point of Hayom, the present, we sift through the past to distill that fuel to create the kind of future we know in our hearts is the path to holiness. This past, present, and future, existing at the same time, is mirrored in the name of God, Yahweh, an amalgam of the past, the present, and the future, Hayah, Hoveh, and Yehiyah. Rabbi Alan Liu, cited by Susanna in her remarks last night, has written a beautiful book, This is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared, and he describes it as a process that really has no end. So that's Teshuvah time, Hayom. On to the second word. The process of becoming attuned to this subtle dance of past, present, and future and using it as an engine of Teshuvah is something that takes time and focus. Rabbi Liu charts the almost 2 months from Tisha B'Av to Yom Kippur as an annual trek to get to that special place of time. It's a process of turning inward, of recognizing our inner brokenness and turning to God to help us heal it. Shuv, to turn, is the root of tushuvah, which means to return. So we turn to God to return to God. Moses uses an amazing word, and this is the second word I wanted to call out, for what happens at the end of this 8-week spiritual journey. What happens to your heart is that God takes it and circumcises it. As the young kids would say, what? It's right there in the third aliyah. Umal Adonai Elohecha et levavecha. Umal, like moel. What a word. What does it mean for God to circumcise your heart? So like any good modern Jewish scholar, I Googled it. I Googled it. Okay. When I typed in circumcise your heart in the search box, I'm sure I ended up on a list somewhere at the FBI and the NSA. Maybe it's evocative of taking off a barrier over your heart so that you can be open to the reality of your finitude and turn to teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah, penitence, prayer, and righteousness to alleviate the harshness of our certain death, which can happen at any time. Maybe it is symbolic of the renewal of the covenant with God that can occur after teshuvah, because circumcision was a covenant. Maybe it signifies getting to some core of you that's closer to God and more vulnerable. Whatever it is, this metaphor has a side that is not gentle. The process of teshuvah can take a little something out of us. Maybe in the words of Rev. Janis Joplin, it takes another little piece of your heart. Now, baby. It is in that spirit of connectedness beyond time, inspired by that mix of our past, our present, and our future, that we stand here today, contemplating return, making teshuvah, opening our hearts. The Torah reading is in your supplement.
It's an extra slide here. All right, Ian and Stephanie. Yeah, Zarve game via Sheila Colacosim Bobamar. Amen. I call a good Ekrala Amod. Yaakov ben Zaleg Vasara, Vasara Gesha, Bat Avram Mordechai Valea, Lalia Rishana, Baruch Shatan Torah Lema Yisrael B'Krishato, V'atem Hanikim Aranai Lechem, so all marked out for you in your reading, the first Aliyah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirvanu la'avodato v'natan et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten Torah.
Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kolchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem, roshechem shiftechem, זקניכם ושלטריכם, כל איש ישראל, טפכם נשיכם וגרך, אשר בקרב מחנך, מחוטי ביתך, עד שואב מימיך, ליעברך בברית, אדוני אלוהיך ובעלתו, אשר אדוני אלוהיך קראתי ממך היום.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם בתוכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
I'm going to invite Rihanna and Julian Cranberg to come sit on the bema. I'll call Susanna and Anna. Shoshana bat Avram v'Ruth, v'Chana bat Aryeh v'Shoshana l'ashniya.
אשר קיבלנו לעבודתו ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. למען הקימתך היום לא לעם, והוא יהיה לך לאלוהים כאשר דיבר לך, וכאשר נשבע לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב. ולא איתכם לבדכם, אנוכי כורת את הברית הזאת ואת העלה הזאת, כי את אשר ישנו פה עמנו עומד היום לפני אדוני אלוהינו, ואת אשר איננו פה עמנו היום.
אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נשא בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
I'm going to ask Jonah and Ezra Levy to come up as I call Julian and Rihanna. Ekra lamod, Rihanna Leah, bat David Eliezer v'Sara Leah, v'Chaim David ben David Eliezer v'Sara Leah, l'Aliyah hashlishit, third Aliyah.
Baruch Adonai Haborah. Baruch Adonai Haborah Elam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirvanu la'avodato, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'haya ki yavo alecha kol hadvarim ha'ele, habracha v'haklala asher natati lefanecha, v'hashevotai levavecha b'chol hagoyim asher hidichacha Adonai Elohecha shama v'shavta Adonai Elohecha v'shamata b'kolo gechol asher anochi mitzavcha hayom ata uvanecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha v'yeshav Adonai Elohecha et shavutcha v'richamecha v'shav v'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim asher hefitzcha Adonai Elohecha shama im Adonai nidachacha b'ketzezei hashamayim misham yikabetzcha Adonai Elohecha u'misham yikachecha v'heviacha Adonai Elohecha el haaretz asher yeshu avotecha v'rishta v'hitivecha v'hirbecha me'avotecha v'hitivecha v'hirbecha me'avotecha umal Adonai Elohecha et levavcha ve'et levav zarecha li'ahava et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha l'man chayecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam atah b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeshua.
I'm going to call Sarah Schneider to come up as our Torah reader. Scott and Jonah Lippman, come and take your place as we call Ezra and Jonah. Ezra, the first time after your bar mitzvah. Ekra la'amod, Mordechai ben Yudit liba ve'eliyahu Reuben, ve'ezra Kalev ben Yudit liba ve'eliyahu Reuben, li'aliyah ha'revi'it. The fourth aliyah.
Baruch Adonai Habarach. Baruch Adonai Habarach v'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirvanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'natan Adonai Elohecha et kol halot ha'ela al oivecha v'asonecha asher radafucha v'eta tashuv v'shamata v'kol Adonai v'asita kol mitzvotav asher anochim etzlecha hayom v'hotircha Adonai Elohecha b'chol ma'aseh yadecha b'fri b'necha v'fri b'hemtecha v'fri advacha l'tova ki yashuv Adonai Ki yashuv Adonai l'sus alayich latov kasher sas avotecha ki tishma b'kol Adonai Elohecha l'shmor mitzvotav v'chukotav haktuva b'sefer Torah hazeh ki tashuv Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam atah b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
I'd like Sam Brenner and Ryan Feeney to come up, and also Jonathan Magaziner, you may want to take your place on the FEMA as well, as I call Scott and Jonah. So Jonah's first aliyah since his bar mitzvah. Ekra lamod chonatzvi ben Yishaya v'Joanna v'Yishaya ben Chana v'Oren Noah l'aliyah chamishit.
Baruch Adonai Habarach.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai Habarach v'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirvanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ki hamitzvah hazot asher anochim etzlecha hayom lo niflet hi mimcha v'lo rechoka hi lo bashamayim hi lemor. Mi ya'aleh lanu hashamayma v'yikachei halanu v'yishmeinu otav v'nasena v'lo me'ever layam hi lemor. Mi ya'avor lanu ever hayam v'yikachei halanu v'yishmeinu otav v'nasena כי קרוב אלייך הדבר מאוד, בפיך ובלבבך לעשותו.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tofenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
And ask Miriam Messenger and Trudy Bauer to come up. So you're ready for Haggadah. So I call Sam and his betrothed, Brian. Ekra Lamot, Hillel Motel Ben David, the Katie, Lalia Shishit.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMorach. Baruch Adonai HaMorach L'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Ve'ed natati lefanecha hayom et hachayim ve'et hatov ve'et hamavet ve'et hara asher anochi metzavcha hayom. L'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lalechet b'drachav v'lishmor mitzvotav v'chukotav u'mishpatav v'chayita v'rafita v'rachacha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz. Asher atah shama l'rishta v'imifne levavcha v'lo tishma v'nidachta v'hishtachavita l'Elohim acherim v'avadatam Yigadti lachem hayom ki avod tovedun lo ta'richun yamim al ha'adama asher ata over et hayatei lavo shama v'rista Ha'idoti bachem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz ha'chayim ve'hamavet natati lefanecha habracha ve'hakalala v'chata b'chayim lema'an tichye ata v'zarecha Le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha Lishma'a b'kolo u'davkavo Ki hu chayecha ve'orach yamecha Lashevet al ha'adama Asher nishba Adonai la'avotecha le'Avraham le'Yitzchak u'le'Yaakov latet lahem. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Sam and Ryan, a blessing for the two of you on your upcoming marriage. May you receive blessing by being with us on this day, reading the portion that says choose life. You have clearly chosen life in choosing each other. May you be blessed to have all of the goodness, good health, and love, and compassion and forgiveness that make a marriage strong. And may you be blessed to see all of the fruits that we have seen on this bima of couples and of children and of generations of families being together. Mazel tov to both of you. Before the Hag Ban Galila, we're going to turn to 223 for our prayer for healing. I'll invite everyone to sing one stanza, then I'm going to read a very long list of names as we have so many people that we're holding in our hearts. And when I'm done with my list, I'll invite anyone who has a name simply to say it. We won't have the opportunity for each person's name to be heard individually, but we want to make sure that those names are lifted up so that we can be with them and be with you in your prayers for healing. Please join me, 223. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing and let us say Amen. May the Holy and bless Ariella bat Miriam bat Felicia, Yehudit bat Esther, Shendel bat Sosia, Elka bat Shendel, Barry Levine, Jan Levine, Eliza bat Yehudit, Tivona bat Sarah, Rivka Liba bat Ita, Dina Yocheved bat Salma, Tzipora Yochana bat Sarah, Ilana bat Rachel, Gili bat Esther, Chaya Fega bat Shoshana, Serena Shapiro, Masha Yocheved Chaya bat Savia, Nomi bat Salal bat Chana Rezel, Rachel bat Malka, Yocheved Basia bat Sarah, Adam ben Sarah, Shalom ben Yehudit, Tova bat Esther, Joanne Belavance, David Holliday, Ren Lackey, Jay Reinstein, Yafa Leah bat Chana, Phyllis Kaufman, Yosefa Leah bat Chana Bela, Allison Oatman, Maxine Flock, Margaret Hoffman, Robin Catcher, Ingrid Knapp, Judith Tuman, Jim Solomon, Naftalia Gittel bat Liba Yehudit, Nikki Meadow, Aharon ben Bracha Yosef, Claire Hertz, Ben Sion ben Penina, Fredo bat Malka, Lucille Haskell, Kyle bat Natanya, Jenny Wagner, Catherine Brooker, Lauren Tracy, Leah Kochava bat Chana David, Zohar bat Sarah, Yael bat Havram Vachava, Harav Yisrael Gadol ben Batya, Jim Ireland, Anthony Di Nicola, Harav Yaakov Yosef ben Chana Freda, Caroline Jane Fields, Meg Scar, and all those we name. Misha Makor bracha, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. May the Holy One be with them and give them complete healing. And now we rise as the first scroll is lifted. Ef pralamora magbiha pralamora galele sefer rishon. And Nirma Dar and Debbie Adams, you'll make your way up as well. When the door is going. Thank you. Take your seats now as we go to our machzor for the Maftir Aliyah. Page 539. Ekra lamo dvorat bat Moshe v'tzipa reza maftira.
Baruch Adonai Hamdulillah. Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kivanu lavodato, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Adonai Noten HaTorah.
אמן. ובסוף לחודש השביעי הזה מקרא קודש שלכם. ועיניתם את נפשותיכם, כל מלאכה לא תעשו. והקרבתם עולה לאדוני ריח ניחוח, פער בין בקר אחד, איל אחד, כבשים בני שנה, 7 תמימים יהיו לכם. ומלכתם צורת בלולה בשמן, 3 עשרונים בקר, 2 עשרונים ליל האחד. יתרון הכבש האחד ל7 הכבשים. שעיר זם אחד חטאת, מלבד חטאת הכיפורים, ועולת התמיד, ומלכתה ונצחת.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah temet b'chayei olam netad b'tocheinu. Baruch Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Sam Langner and Brian Rossman. Yamod Amagbia, Ekra Lamod Agolel, Sefer Sheni. We rise as the second tower is lifted. V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei Yisrael b'yad Moshe.
la 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 la
Can take your seats. In 541, we begin the Haftarah with the blessings. And I urge you to follow in your Machzor 542, 543. These are powerful words speaking to us from long ago about what this fast is truly about. Thank you, Debbie, for coming back every year.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'mim tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem hane'emarim b'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'b'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo V'ndi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Amar solu solu anu darech harimu miksho miderech ami ki Amar Abraham v'nisa shochein ad v'kadosh shemo Marom v'kadosh eshkon v'yadaka u'shval ruach l'chachayot ruach shafalim u'hachayot levni kayim ki lo le'olam ariv v'lo lanetzach exof ki ruach milfanai ya'atov U'neshamot ani asiti ba'avon bitzol katzafti ve'akehu haster ve'eksof va'yelech shovav v'derech libo derechav ra'iti ve'erpaehu ve'anhehu va'ashaleim nihumim lo v'la v'la Oreni Svatayim, Shalom, Shalom, Larahov, Velakarov, Amar Adonai Orfativ, Vehashaim Kayom Migrash, Ki Hashket Lo Yuchal, Yigrushu Memal Refesh Fatid, Ein Shalom, Amar Elohai Eloshayim, Kerah Vegaron Al Takso, Kashafar Harim Kolecha, V'hagei La'ami Pisham, Uvet Yaakov Chatotam, Ve'oti Yom Yom Yidroshun V'da'at Derechayek Batsun Kegoy Asher Tzedaka Asa Umishpat Elohav Lo Azav Yisha'aluni Pi Mishpatet Tzedek Kirvat Elohim Yekpatsun Lamat Samnu V'lo Ra'ita Aninu nafshenu velo teda hein b'yom tzomcheim timsu chefetz v'chol atzvechem tingosu hein l'riv u'matzah tatzumu u'lhakok be'grof reisha lo tatzumu chayom l'hasmiya b'marom kolchem Achazeh Yom Yihetzo Mebharechu Yom Anot Adam Nifsho Halachov Keagmon Rosho Besach Va'etza Yatzia Halazet Tikratzom B'Yom Ratzon Ladonai Halo Zeh Somev Harehu Hateha Hartzubot Resha Hater Agudot Mota Beshalach Retutsim Chafshim V'chol Mota Tenateku Alo Faros Lara Ev Lachmecha V'ani Merudim Kavivayit Kitire Arom V'hisito Umitzarha Lo Tidalam Azibaka Kashaha Oraha Va'aruchataka Mehera Titzma Ve'halach lefanecha tzidkecha kivod Adonai ya'asvecha az tikra le'Adonai ya'aneh tesheva v'yomer hineni im tasir mitochecha motah shelach etzba v'edaber aven Atafeh l'ra'ev nafshecha v'nefesh na'ana tasbiya v'zarach b'hoshech orecha va'afelatecha kasacharayim v'nachacha Adonai tamid v'hisbiya b'tzachzachot nafshecha v'atzmotecha yachalit Chayita kegan rabeh ukmotza mayim asher lo yachazvu memav uvanu mimcha chavot olam mostei dor v'dor tegomen v'kara lecha godeh peretz eshovev netivot lashavet Im tashiv mishabat raglacha asor chafatzacha bayom kareshi vekarata la shabbat oneg likto sharanoi mechubad v'hibadto me'asot derachecha mimtzo hefzecha v'daber davar az titana Adonai v'hirkavticha abamate aretz v'ha'alticha nachalad Yaakov avicha ki Adonai diber Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sur kol halamim, sadik b'kol hadorot, el haneman haomer v'yoseh hamdaber kayim, shekol devarohav emet v'tzedek. Ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu, v'ne'emanim devarecha, v'davar chad midbarecha, achor lo yoshuv rekam, ki el melech ne'eman v'rachaman atah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el ha'ne'eman v'chol devarav. Rachem al Tzion ki beit chayenu, v'la'alu bet nefesh toshia b'mheira v'yameinu. Baruch atah Adonai, mesameh Tzion b'vanecha.
Amen.
Sam keinu Adonai Eloheinu b'Eliyahu hanavi avdecha, u'v'malchut beit David Meshichecha, b'mheira yavo v'yagel libenu, al kiso lo yeshev zar v'lo yintalu od acharim et kevodo, ki v'shem kachukah nishbata lo, shelo yikben hero le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen David.
Amen.
Al HaTorah, Ve'al Havodah, Ve'al Hanbim, Ve'al Yom HaKippurim Hazeh, Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, Limlicha v'lisliuchahu hapara, Lekavod Tifaret. Al Hakol Adonai Eloheinu Anachnu Modim Lach Umvarchim Otach Yitbarach Shimcha Befi Kol Chai Tamid Le'olam Va'ed Udvarcha Emet Bekayom La'ad Baruch Atah Adonai Melech Mochel V'Soleach La'avonotenu V'La'avonot Amo Beit Yisrael U'Ma'avir Ashmotenu Bechol Shana V'Shana Melech HaOretz Mekadesh Yisrael Melech HaOretz Mekadesh Yisrael Melech HaKol Haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael, V'Yom HaKippurim.
Thank you, Debbie, for bringing those words of Isaiah into beautiful melodies. I'm going to invite Hannah Schleifer to come up, and while she's coming, I believe Jocelyn has some brief announcements for today.
Mar Chatima Tova to everyone. May you be sealed for goodness. If you haven't brought back your shopping bags for the Grow Clinic, you have until Wednesday, September 22nd to bring them back. Yom Kippur at HBT is a full mind-body experience. In addition to praying in the sanctuary, HBT extends an invitation to all of you to open up your heart to Teshuvah, a return to wholeness, in a variety of ways this afternoon from 1:30 to 5. Today, there is yoga, discussion, and meditation, and there's a bulletin board out in the lobby with all of the detail. If you are leaving during this time, please be sure to be back in the sanctuary and take your seats early so we can all begin together promptly at 5. Yom is a time to remember people we have loved and lost. Some are grieving the deaths of people they lost this past year. Caregivers are grieving the deaths of people entrusted to them. Friends are grieving for their friends' losses. This pandemic year has taken its toll in many ways. Even if you are not mourning a specific individual, everyone is invited to our Yizkor service to mourn whatever loss you are feeling since last Yom Kippur. This interactive service, both in person and on Zoom, will help us to reconnect with each other and support one another in our time of mourning and remembering. Mincha will be led today by Susanna Sirkin and Rabbi Penzner. And finally, HBT has a number of ways that you can join us for the Ne'ilah service this evening. In person, in the sanctuary, or on Zoom, or listening from your car radio in the temple parking lot. Havdalah and shofar blowing will take place outdoors immediately after Ne'ilah from 7:15 to 7:30 in the parking lot, and on Zoom, where we will all hear the final shofar blast together, together. The holidays, though, are not over with Yom Kippur. Please check the HBT website and newsletter for information on Sukkot and Simchat Torah. Once again, thank you for considering a gift for our High Holy Day appeal. You can ensure that everything that makes Temple HBT special continues year-round for our children, for adults, for all of us. And as you sit comfortably in this beautiful new space, know that we are excited to continue the important work of making this sanctuary even more accessible by lowering the bima and creating a ramp up to it. This is an exciting next phase of our sanctuary upgrade, and we'll share more information about that later this fall. Once again, we'd like to take an additional moment to appreciate all the people who have worked so hard to make our High Holy Day services meaningful and safe. Thank you to everyone who participated in services, who led services, those who spoke or chanted, our ushers and greeters, and members of our security detail. Thank you to all the members of the Avodah and security committees for your leadership and hard work. And finally, once again, thank you to our staff, Lori Spackman, Moreno Guzman, Hillary Pinsker, and Benita Block, for their tireless efforts to make our building and our programming so effortless, and a special thank you to our countless volunteers. On behalf of the entire congregation, our officers, board, and staff, we wish everyone a Gemar Chatima Tova. May it be sealed for a good new year and have an easy fast.
Thank you, Joss. Every year, we invite someone in the congregation to give a personal offering. And there have been a whole range of these offerings, people reflecting on their lives and bringing us a message to share. And as we reflected on this past year and how challenging it has been for many, I was very grateful that Hannah Schleifer has agreed to talk about what it would like to spend this year after she graduated from college, and share some of her learning with us. So Hannah, I want to step up, please. Hi.
I feel funny writing a personal offering for Yom Kippur. I grew up listening to these from the myriad of accomplished, experienced, and all-around brilliant and thoughtful people at HBT. In many ways, whenever I'm around the temple, especially the building itself, I still feel like I should be stealing jelly candies from the cabinet under the sink outside the old library. Or I should be out on the grass out front, gossiping with my friends. I should be running out of the chapel the second the clock hits noon on Sundays. It still feels like you all, this place, have more to offer me than I, you. Make no mistake, I'm rapidly approaching 24, geriatric by the standards of the classic American coming-of-age film. But I've never truly felt less put together and directed. When thinking through this offering, I struggled. What can I offer of myself when I can't even be too sure who I am? I don't need to review the past 18 months for the class. A lot has happened. I've experienced a lot of personal growth and new understandings, but I can't in good conscience say these were even silver linings or whatever family holiday cards last year like to say about getting a dog or spending more time together during 2020. There's no way to say that one age group had it worse than any other, but I think graduating college in May 2020 changed how I contextualize my life more than graduating in a non-COVID year would have. In my head, graduating meant broadening my world. Don't get me wrong, I was having a great time at the beginning of my senior spring, optimizing for the lightest workload possible, going to the library just to hang out, attending crowded basement parties with bowls of punch served with communal ladle. I know, unfathomable. I was enjoying myself, but in the next year I was gonna have a job, maybe move out, find a pickup sports league, who knows what else. This chapter of my life is gonna be defined by meeting new people and having new experiences. Obviously, I could not have been more wrong. To be honest, I have to think really hard to remember most of the past year and a half. I went into autopilot, focusing on what I needed to do to get through each passing day. Thankfully, my family stayed safe. I was able to graduate. I started a full-time job, but every night I fell ill with what I like to call night COVID, when every night I convinced myself I have COVID symptoms. The future was now a black wall, impossibly high and impossibly wide. I lost all the external feedback I'd used for so many years to define who I am for myself. I didn't have grades to hit and concepts to master. My friends weren't around. I didn't have my weekly volunteer shift teaching math at the local elementary school. I had previously come to terms with leaving college without a clear idea where I was heading in life. But I'd never imagined having to learn to live with myself, just myself, no feedback at the end of the exam. Not unlike many of my peers, I reverted hard. I spent my time reading the Percy Jackson, the Olympians book series, learning pop songs on the guitar, and watching TV shows on FaceTime with my friends. Anything really to stave off the never-ending thought cycle in my head, the restlessness, the worry that everything actually would not be okay. I spent a lot of time in my room, and while going through the artifacts of lives past, I came across a book, and an important one at that. My favorite book growing up, introduced to me by my mother, was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. I love the story so much, I even enjoyed watching the terrible made-for-TV movie adaptation. It's really fun. Without giving anything big away, since I highly suggest everyone read it. The story follows an awkward, nerdy teenage girl, her eccentric brother, and her jockey but sweet classmate as they take a trip through the galaxy to find her father, a physicist who's been trapped on a remote planet for years. I've read it many times before, but I reread it last summer. More than ever before, I took meaning from the different adventures in the book. I never realized how sensory focused the descriptions of these different planets were. The three children are guided through the universe by three mystical beings who exist beyond any human form, virtually limitless. They even describe how difficult it is for them to assume human forms, as it is too limiting a form to contain all their power. In the moment reading these lines, I tried to imagine that feeling of being an all-powerful being stuffed into a puny human form. I imagined discovering all my limitations as if I'd never had them before. I imagine that human speech cannot fully encapsulate what the all-powerful being inside me can express, that having limbs and lungs limits my physical ability, and that my constant need for nourishment and rest sets me back more than I've ever experienced before. Lying in bed that night, I thought more about this sensory experience to the galaxy the kids had experienced. I thought about the sensation of my lungs burning as if I was with them when they went too high into an atmosphere with too little oxygen. I thought about their mode of transportation, the tesseract, transporting them from one location to another by bending time and space, and its supposed effects on their human bodies. Oddly enough, I felt more connected to my body than I had in many months. As the pandemic had ramped up, I'd compartmentalized my mind and body more and more. I wiggled my toes, noting how my shin muscles moved in the process. I moved my head side to side, feeling the weight transfer from left to right. I took a deep breath in, feeling my lungs expand against my ribs and organs. I felt my mind slow. My night COVID symptoms subsided, and I felt sleepy. The whirring of my thoughts became so faint that the drowsiness of nighttime took over. Over the past year, it has taken all of me just to keep moving forward, however slowly. Moments like this were few and far between, but each one brought me closer to a new version of myself, one who thinks presently and feels connected in the moment. It's surreal that a second Yom Kippur is passing in this pandemic. Last year I was in a much different place than I am now. I confess, the holiday meant very little to me then. My future looked like the plot of Russian Doll, living the same day over and over again, and repentance was low on my list of focus points. Before the pandemic, my focus was on moving forward and quickly. I was gearing up to start a life of always looking to the next requirement, the next thing to accomplish on my way to some vague sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in my life. What if I can't move forward? What if the world has changed so fundamentally that I don't even recognize what the next thing could be? Who am I if I'm not the sum of the things I can accomplish as quickly as possible? Recently, I had a realization. I wasn't Natasha Lyonne in Russian Doll. My days only felt like they were repeating because I wasn't living in them. I was living through them. In the past, I could let my days pass without processing them or feeling them to get to some landmark in the foreseeable future. I remained in that mindset as the pandemic set in, though these landmarks vanished and left me with a never-ending hallway of days to glide past. But each time I had a moment like the one with my favorite childhood book, or the crisp fall air hit my face on one of my necessary daily walks, or a friend sent me a text message that made me laugh extra hard, I opened the doors to rooms along that hallway. I poked my head into the days passing by and absorbed what they had to offer as they were, sans future plan. As I started to see the days that pass as individual moments, I found more enjoyment in the things I could do and could enjoy. While I reverted in many ways to my high school self, especially in expressed interests and amount of whining, I found new appreciation for them. My father can tell you how many hours I spent explaining how Rick Riordan crafted the perfect young adult novel series, which, while annoying, is something I never would have thought about when I first read through them. I spoke to many of the same friends as I did in high school, but we have all grown. Our friendships are a lot deeper and carry weight in my life that I did not have the emotional depth to realize 5 years ago. I thought about college, how I would never walk around my campus as a student again, how my key card would never swipe me into my friends' dorms, how I would never again spend hours upon hours working with my classmates on problem sets, using up chalk like it could buy us the answers. Unlike before, however, I saw these memories as days along my never-ending hallway, and that they had value in my life as they were, independent of the amount they contributed to graduating or getting a job or winning an award. In many less words than I just gave you, I learned to slow down. I learned that sometimes it's best to live presently because it turns life from a monotonous hallway into a warm, lively house. It's interesting to think that had the pandemic not happened, which is a phrase I'm sure we're all done hearing, maybe I would not have gained this perspective this quickly. Or maybe I would have, just in a very different way. But ultimately, I question how useful it is to compare my hypothetical never COVID self with myself today. Growing up is a nonlinear journey we all experience in different ways. Our youths are marked by different world events, different people, different places, and different abhorrent fashion trends. I just hope that I can continue to slow down and live to fully experience it all. Lashana Tova. I wish you all a happy new year and an easy fast.
Amen, amen. Amen, amen. 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 Oh, Hannah, that was a hard thing to do, and thank you for sharing and helping us see a different perspective. We're going to return the Torah scrolls to the Aron now. So I'm going to invite Lee Cranberg, Emily Engler, and Julie Tischler to join us on the Bima. We open to page 566. Please rise. Get the other Torah? Wait, just not yet. Can you get the other Torah for Emily? You get this one on your right shoulder, unless you're not right-handed. Yeah, rest it gently on your shoulder so that you're not all on your arms. Make sure it stays up, not like a baby. Got it. Yeah, hallelujah, et Shem Adonai, ki nizkav shemo levado, hodo haaretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren v'yamo, tila lechol chasidav, livnei Yisrael amro. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Yalla la 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 Pretty good. lie, 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 lie. Yeah, lie, 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 yeah, lie, 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 yeah, lie, 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 lie. Please, you keep. Lie, 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 569. Uvnu fo yamam. Shuva Ilekachto natati lachem torati atazovu etz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomcha meushar deravecha darfei noam V'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu elecha v'nashuv Chadash Yameinu Kekeh. Return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. And now that Leslie's here, I can start. Have a seat. Well, this is actually the heart of Yom Kippur. I mean, Kol Nidre pulls us in, but if you're really going to go into the depths, there is so much going on in the Musaf and so much that you can do. And I recognize people are doing their tshuva in other ways. We will fill the space. This is, after all, as Susanna said, prayer, according to Rabbi Heschel, is the home of the soul. So we invite you back to prayer as we prepare for the Musaf. We're going to go to Unatana Tokef shortly after we begin the Musaf. It happens in this book within a few pages. So I'd like to reflect on that for a moment, particularly in the context of what we've been talking about, of holding a little less tightly onto our control and embracing uncertainty. I've placed in the handout on page 9 3 different takes on Unatana Tokef, fairly similar but coming from different places. And I'm going to read for you the 3rd paragraph. And these all focus on, at the end of Unatana Tokef, after the end of that litany of all the things that could possibly happen to us or people we love in the coming year, we have this big but, however. In Hebrew, it's simply it's a va, it's an and. So you can take it as an and, or you can take it as a but. And tshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah are the ways that we confront these decrees, the ways that we soften to our reality. And I want to read this 3rd passage, and I could not for the life of me find out who wrote it. I had written it down 16 years ago, and I looked in every file I could. I couldn't find out who wrote it. So, in gratitude to this wonderful person who wrote, Unatana Tokef has 2 parts. Recognizing what we can control and must take charge of, and acknowledging what is not within our control. And what should be our response to reading this litany of horrible deaths? Compassion, conviction, and connection. Compassion for those whose lives are marred by loss and suffering. Conviction in making our precious moments worthwhile, in not allowing our days to be wasted in despair, and connection, creating the bonds when all is well to carry us through the difficult times. Utshuva, utfilah, utzedakah, and compassion, and conviction, and connection help us overcome the tragedies that break into our lives. I invite you to rise. We are on 579, opening the Musaf with the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadol v'kadash meraban Be'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uvyomechon Uv'chayech d'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'gala u'bizman karib v'imru Amen Yehei Shemei Rabbam Mevorach Le'olam Olamei Amayah Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'par v'romam v'tnasei V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha Brichu Le'ela u'le'ela mi מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ויאמרו Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka v'Elohei Rachel v'Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot U'Mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem L'man Shemo B'Ahava Zochreinu L'Chaim Melech Hafetz B'Chaim V'Chodleinu B'Sefer HaChaim L'mancha Elohim Chaim Melech Ozer U'Moshiach Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, וחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים בחסד, וחיי מתים ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים. ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות ומי דומה לך. מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע. מי כמוך האב הרחמים זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים. ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. 582. ונתן את תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא ואיום. ובו תנשא מלכותך, וייכון בחסד כיסאך, ותשב עליו באמת. Truly, you are the judge who calls us to account, the all-knowing witness. You record and seal, count and measure. You remember all that is forgotten. You open the book of memories and it speaks for itself. For each of us by our deeds has put our signature to it. ובשופר גדול ייתקע, וקול מעמד דקה יישמע. A great shofar is sounded, yet a still small voice is heard. The angels are alarmed, gripped by fear and trembling. They cry, "Behold, the day of judgment." For the heavenly hosts pass before you in judgment, and even they are found wanting. All who have entered the world pass you before you like a flock of sheep. Kavakarat roeh edro, the third line down in the second passage. Kavakarat roeh edro, ma virzono
תחת שבטו, כבקרת רועד רו, מה ברצונו תחת שבטו, כן תעביר ותספור ותמנה ותבכות נפש נפש כל חי, כבקרות רועד רו, מה ברצונו תחת שבטו, כבקרות רועד רו, מה ברצונו תחת שבטו, ותוך תצווה לכל בריאו, ותכתוב את גזר דינם, כבקרות רועד רו, מה ברצונו תחת שבטו, כבקרות רועד רו, מה ברצונו תחת שבטו. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייכתבון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייכתבון. כמה יעברון וכמה יבראון, מי יחיה ומי ימות, מי בקיצור ומי לא בקיצור, מי באש ומי במים, מי בחרב ומי בחיה. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייכתבון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייכתבון. מי ברב ומי בצמא, מי ברש ומי במגפה, מי בחניקה ומי בסקילה. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייכתבון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייכתבון. מי ינוח ומי ינוע, מי ישקט ומי יטרף, מי ישלב ומי יתייסר, מי יעני ומי יאשר, מי ישפל ומי ירום. ותשובה ותפילה וצדקה מעבירים את רוע הגזרה.
You are all that we praise you for, slow to anger, easily appeased. You do not desire a person's death, but rather that one turns from one's path and live. Until the day of our death, you await us. When we return, you immediately welcome us. For you are the Creator, and you know the nature of your creatures, that they are flesh and blood. A person's origin is dust, and one's end is dust. Adam Yisodo Me'afar, 10 lines down on 585.
Adam Yisodo Me'afar, V'sofo le'afar, V'nafsho yavi lachmo, משהו כחרס, אוי, משהו כחרס הנשבר. אדם, 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 אדם יסודו מעפר, וסופו לעפר, בנפשו יביא לחמו, יביא לחמו. אוי כחציר יבש, וכציץ נובל, כצל עובר, וכענן קלה. אדם יסודו מעפר, וסופו לעפר, ונפשו יביא לחמו, יביא לחמו. וכרוח נושבת, וכאבק פורח, וכחלום יעוף. אדם, 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 ואתה הוא מלך אל חי וקיים.
The ark is closed. We remain standing on page 586 for the Kedusha. Also found in transliteration in your supplement.
נעריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה, ואמר קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ, כבודו לידי, כבודו מלא עולם, משרתיו שואלים זה לזה, עם מקום כבודו לעומתם, ברוך ימי רואי הלילה, לילה, 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 ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ממקומו, הוא יפן ברחמים ויחון עם יחדים שמו ערב הבוקר בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים באהבה שמע אומרים, שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו, והוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית, שנית לעיני כל חי. להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ. והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, ודור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד יוד לך ולנצח נצחים. קדושתך ענק להישאר בשבתך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם בית כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה.
Find ways to connect on your own from 588 to 597. I'd like Renee Albert to come onto the bima. In a moment, we're going to open the ark for Aleinu. It's a story. When news swept through the village of the impending death of a beloved and esteemed teacher, well-wishers gathered to pay their last respects and to honor him. And standing around the master's bedside, one by one, they sang his praises and extolled his virtues as he listened and smiled weakly. "Such kindness you have shown us," said one devotee. Another extolled his depth of knowledge. Another lamented that never again would they find a teacher with such eloquence. The tributes to his wisdom, compassion, and nobility continued until the master's wife noticed signs of restlessness. And thanking his devotees, she asked them to leave. Turning to her husband, she asked why he was disturbed, remarking upon all the wonderful tributes that had been showered upon him. "Yes, it was wonderful," he whispered. "But did you notice that no one mentioned my humility?" There's a story that comes from Christina Feldman, a passage called Long Journey to a Bow. And we are on a journey to a bow at this moment. On Yom Kippur, we prostrate ourselves fully to the floor, those who are comfortable doing that. Now, some of us may think of a bow as showing deference to another person, but Christina Feldman suggests that a bow can also be an act of humility. Not an act of bowing before a leader or a teacher or any other person at all. A bow, as expressed in many religious traditions, including our own, is a way to recognize internally our place in the universe as no greater and no lesser than any other human being. And this is what Feldman says. A teacher was asked, "What is the secret of your happiness and equanimity?" And she answered, "A wholehearted, unrestricted cooperation with the unavoidable." A wholehearted, unrestricted cooperation with the unavoidable. We could say, says Christina Feldman, that this is the secret and the essence of a bow. It is the heart of mindfulness and compassion. To bow is no longer hold ourselves apart from the unavoidable and the unpredictable, the nature of all of our lives. It is to cultivate a heart that can unconditionally welcome and respect all things. We bow to what is, to all of life. And so in our practice on this Yom Kippur day of prostrating ourselves, we are making our prayers physical. Our thoughts turn into actions. Our bodies teach our minds to bow before eternity. So as we open the Ark for Aleinu, consider what it is you need to do to find your rightful place among all beings, among all creation, no greater and no less, but simply to align yourself for the coming year. I invite you to rise. As the Ark is open, page 604.
לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם, נטע בתוכנו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטע שמיים ויוסר הארץ ומשב יקר שמיים שכנת הזרים, הוא אלוהינו אינו אלוקים לעשות, כי אדוני הוא אלוקים בשמיים ותחתינו דרכנו ותקן לנו כאילו ידעו כל ישבתנו כי לך כל ברך לשבת. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו
We take our seats. It's become our custom in place of the avodah, recalling that service that Rich mentioned so enticingly, of gathering at the temple and offering the sacrifices and sending off the goats. So I would like to focus on the notion of gathering, of the entire community being together. And we hold our whole community, even in these empty chairs, even across the space through the Zoom, we are gathering. We are reminded we are not alone. So I'm going to invite you into this meditation. It's based on something written by Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt. And to begin, set your book aside. Don't hold on to anything. Be prepared to relax your entire being. If you can sit in such a way, and what I hope you feel are very comfortable chairs, that you feel held in every way, yet your feet are securely held by the floor beneath you, and your entire body is able to sit and relax the arms and the hands and the shoulders, the neck, the head. Allow yourself to breathe naturally. I'll invite you to take one breath in through your nostrils and let it out gradually through your mouth. And then a second breath. And then a third. Keep breathing. Here's the thing. The year begins anew, even in the worst of times. The leaves will turn and fall, and then they'll grow again. And sometimes we're afraid, and we can't know what choice to make to keep anyone safe. Uncertainties abound. All we can do is seek out sweetness everywhere we may and work to fix what brokenness we find. The good news is we're not in this alone. We'll help each other hope when light seems dim, and we'll lift the sparks that darker days reveal. We will love each other fiercely. In the end, there is no greater work that we can do. We who survive will help each other through. That's what Kehillah Kadoshah, a holy community like ours, does. We remind each other that we are not alone. In the quiet of your mind, not aloud, repeat after me. I know I'm not alone. Again, silently in your mind, repeat, I know I'm not alone. When I'm frustrated that our celebrations must be different, say in your mind with me, I know I'm not alone. When I worry about children going back to school, I know I'm not alone. When I fear for my parents who now need a booster, I know I'm not alone. When I feel overwhelmed by even simple decisions, I know I'm not alone. When I am angered by the politicization of science and the pain this has caused, I know I'm not alone. When I connect to faraway family and friends on FaceTime or Zoom, even though I may not see them face to face, I know I'm not alone. When I cannot figure out if this cold requires a COVID test, I know I'm not alone. When I feel bad because during lockdown, I binge watch TV instead of learning to play guitar, take a class, exercise more, or do something more productive, I know I'm not alone. When I remember the suffering of so many others who do not have the blessings and privilege that I have, even though we are in this together, we are not equally in this together. And I need to do more to help. I know I'm not alone. When I'm sad because it feels like I've lost 1.5 years of my life, I know I'm not alone. When struggling to make time to take care of myself, whatever that means, I know I'm not alone. No, you are not alone. We are all in this together. And also remember, not being alone doesn't mean it isn't frustrating and overwhelming and worrisome and scary. It just means we are not alone. So feel that connection. Take strength from the community and remember the lessons of the shofar. The sounds of the shofar parallel our experience. What once was whole, tekiah, became broken, shvarim, and sometimes shatters, teruah. But ultimately it returns to wholeness, tekiah. Hear the call of the Holy One, sending you strength and hope and resilience. Hear the call of the Holy One telling us, no, I am not alone. We are not alone. And we can get through this, as our ancestors did, together. We turn to 639 to begin these passages of Slichot, where we ask forgiveness before we even make our confessions. We wrap ourselves in that compassion, the chesed, the rachamim, the mercy, and the slicha umechila, the forgiveness. Shema koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, chus v'rachem, v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel b'rachamim uvratzon, et tfilateinu. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, v'nashuva, v'nashuva, Chodesh, Chodesh, Chameinu k'kedem. The last two lines. Al tashlichenu, al tashlichenu, al tashlichenu milfanecha, v'ruach kodshecha, al tikach mimenu. Next line. Al tashlichenu, al tashlichenu, al tashlichenu la'ed zikna, ki chlod kochenu, al tazveinu. Next line. Al tazveinu, al tazveinu, Adonai Eloheinu, al tirchak mimenu, al tirchak mimenu. 641. Ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu, anu vanecha ve'ata avinu, anu avadecha ve'ata Adonenu, anu kehalecha ve'ata chelkeinu. Anu nachalatecha ve'ata goraleinu, anu tzon
Anu ra'ayatecha ve'ata dodenu. Anu segulatecha ve'ata krovenu. Anu amecha ve'ata malkeinu. Anu mamirecha ve'ata mamirenu. Yadadadadai, 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 we come to 642 and 643 for our third vidui, our third confession of Yom Kippur. And I want to share this teaching from Rabbi Rami Shapiro. At this Yom Kippur, especially this Yom Kippur, we seek to deal kindly and honestly with ourselves, to take care that our commitment to ideals does not entail the destruction of our own souls, our own worlds. We freely admit our failings and create our atonements. No excuse, no escape, just an honest seeing into the truth that we might correct our path and set off once more toward the good each of us seeks. I invite you to rise as you're able. 643. Get that right. Ay, 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 ay. Ashamnu, vagadnu, gazalnu, dibarnu dofi. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. Avinu v'hirshanu, zadnu, chamasnu, tafalnu sheker. Ay, 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 ay. Yatznu ra, kizavnu, latznu, maradnu, niyatznu. Sararnu, avinu, pashamnu, sararnu, kishinu oref. Ay, 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 ay. Rashanu, shichatnu, tiavnu, tainu, titanu. 645, we remain standing. Continue with the Achet. Achet shechatanu lefanecha b'ones uvratzon, v'achet shechatanu lefanecha b'motza lev, v'achet shechatanu lefanecha b'bli dat, it was time for the sin we committed through not thinking, for the sin of idle talk. For the sin we committed in wronging another, and for the sin of the scheming heart. והחטא שקטנו לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים ועל כולם אלוהים סליחות סלח לנו מחלנו כפר לנו על חטא שקטנו לפניך וכך חשוב חסר על חטא שקטנו לפניך for the sin we committed, Have us the sin we committed by worry and החטא שחטאנו לפניך בעיניים רמות, והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בעזות מצח, ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו. החטא שחטאנו לפניך בפריקתו, והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בפלילות, החטא שחטאנו והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בצרות עין, החטא שחטאנו לפניך בקלות ראש, והחטא שחטאנו ישוד על ראש, החטא שחטאנו לפניך החטא שחטאנו for the sin, החטא שחטאנו ושנאת חינם, החטא שחטאנו לפניך בצומת יד, והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בתמכון לבב, כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו, ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו. Let's remain standing as we sing 649, that all of us be written for the coming year, for blessing and peace, for sustenance, for a good life. בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה, ניזכר וניכתב לפניך, אנחנו בכל עמך בית ישראל, לחיים טובים ולשלום. And since you're already standing, we're going to open the ark. I'm going to ask Julie Korstoff to come up, and we are on page 650. Hayom, as Rich pointed out, this is the day, and it encompasses all time, our past, our present, and our future. Hayom tanseinu, Hayom tevarcheinu, Hayom tegadleinu, Amen, Amen. Hayom tidrashenu letova, Amen, Amen. Hayom tichtavenu lechayim tovim, Amen, Amen. Hayom tishma shavatenu, Amen, Amen. Hayom tekabel rachamim uvratzon et tefilatenu, Amen. Hayom titmechenu bimin tzidkecha, Hayom timchol v'teslach chalavonotenu, Amen, Amen. Thank you, Julie. Thank you. When the ark is closed, we'll sit and turn to 652 to bring the end to the Musaf service. Yitgadal v'yitkadosh shemei Rabbah, Be'omad yivrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayedachol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'zman karib. V'yimeru amen. Yehi shmeram b'mevarach le'olam olam me'omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitparit ramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu la'ela u'le'ela michol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'yimeru amen titkabel tzloton uvaton d'chol beit Yisrael goram avon div v'shemaya v'yimeru amen Yehesh lamarabba min shemaya v'chaim tovim aleinu ve'al Yisrael ve'imru amen Yaseh shalom bimromav Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'yimeru Amen. Wish you Gmar Chatima Tova. May you feel connected as you are doing this work of tshuva. May you feel that you are not alone. Shana Tova.